Hello everyone, Jared here, and in today's video, we're stopping for a day in Guiyang before heading off to our next destination, Kaili City. And so yet again, we took another high-speed rail ride back to the city, which we'd passed through on our way to Kunming, and we got to see this great scenery in the mountains again. Of all the places where I'd gone on the high-speed rail, this was definitely the best of them. But after just a quick couple of hours, we arrived in Guiyang, took a taxi to the hotel, dropped our things off, and went out to yet another museum. This one, the Guiyang Museum, was supposed to be fantastic and brand new.
Hello everyone, just arrived in Guizhou, and now we dropped our things off at the hotel and we have come to the new Guizhou Museum. Let's go ahead and see what's here. The first thing here is the ethnic part of Guizhou. Let's go see what they've got.
So the first part of this museum shows many different screens with detailed information about each of the minority groups that exist in the province. And while I was recording, something unexpected happened.
So I just had a couple little followers around this part of the exhibit. We'll see if they keep following me around the different parts. But that's something that's normal, especially in this province in China where there are a lot fewer foreigners.
Children were following me around everywhere in this first section, and it's really rare not only to see a foreigner, but to be able to interact with one who can also speak a little bit of Chinese. So, walking through this exhibit that highlighted what the minority villages looked like in the area around Guiyang ended up being a rather interesting experience for some of them. And one lucky girl even got a picture with me. Normally that happens to my father on these trips instead of me.
This is the first time I've seen this in a museum. You have an interactive screen where you're able to just look at different minorities, different areas, and you can just tap one of these and it'll bring you to something about a different area within the province.
The only downside to a lot of these screens is that there's no English, so if you're someone who doesn't know Chinese, it's probably not going to be very beneficial for you. But at least most of the pictures and artifacts around the museum do have some English for you to understand what you're looking at. But anyways, there were lots of screens that highlighted all unique areas around Guizhou province where the minority groups lived, and there was a small section on the craftsmanship of unique cultural artifacts that belonged to the ethnic groups. From whistles to pottery, there were a number of pieces that were quite exquisite. But the best of the museum was yet to come.
There appears to be a set path in this museum that leads us up an escalator to the next floor. No options on where to go, except back. Actually, you can't even go back at this point. There's only one escalator going up.
The insides of this museum were designed unlike any other that I'd ever been to, and if you looked up, it was like a maze. And once we reached the next section, it was all about the different outfits and costumes that the ethnic minorities of China wear from this area of Guizhou province. A majority of the different clothing and hairstyles that you're seeing here are actually primarily from the Miao minority. And one of the fortunate things about Guizhou and other southwest provinces in China is that unlike how most ancient Chinese civilizations in the Central Plains have already lost their uniqueness and heritage over time and become part of the Han majority, the ethnic minorities of Guizhou province and neighboring areas have largely been able to preserve their heritage. So thankfully, I'm able to bring you these pictures today because of that. But, as I said, it wasn't only the headdresses that were in this area.
The Guiyang Museum, the new location, is a must. You absolutely have to go to this museum if you're at all interested in the costumes of the Miao minority in China.
A quick side note before I continue. We had a lot of issues with taking pictures here because of glare due to the poor lighting here, but we were able to come up with a solution. So we would take pictures of the outfits that we thought were particularly special. Some of you might actually recognize them, like this one, if you happen to be from the Fresno area in the United States, because the Miao culture and the Hmong culture are very similar, although there are some differences. And in a future video I hope to highlight some of that. But we would take pictures of what we liked, and I would also slowly go over it with my camera to get a video of it as well. Just looking at all that detailing in the embroidered patterns in the clothing, as well as the craftsmanship of the jewelry, really makes these pieces exquisite. And there are plenty to see here, but sometimes it wasn't easy to get over to them in order to get a shot.
So here you have a group of a whole bunch of little kids who are all going on field trips right now to learn about these as well.
Usually after waiting just a couple of minutes, they'd be out of the way and we'd be able to get whatever shots we wanted of these incredible outfits. And rather than talk any more about these, I think it would be better for me to just let you look at them yourself. And let me know in the comments below maybe which one you think is the best. Not all of the outfits, though, that were in this exhibit were just the women's outfits, however. There were also plenty of outfits that were dedicated to the men of the minority groups as well. And one thing that I really appreciate about these outfits is that even though that these are men's outfits, they have lots of bright colors, as well as patterns that maybe most people wouldn't associate with men wearing in Western culture. And another thing about these bright colors is the fact that actually the ones that are the brightest, like what you're seeing here, actually tend to be newer outfits, as in most of them were created post-2000 instead of from some time back decades or even centuries ago. So not all of them are necessarily old outfits or even traditional in the color or material, but it's really nice to see the creativity and continuity as well as the adaptability of the minority groups as they incorporate new materials and designs into their traditional garments.
And here we appear to have some screen where you get to pretend to be a minority person in a costume by going in front of a screen that has motion sensing, and then you just move over the right buttons and it'll take the picture for you.
Well, there are plenty of other outfits that I could talk about that exist in this exhibit, but I think that rather than highlighting any more of them, I'll just have to move on to the next section. And while I know some of you can enjoy looking at all the material and fabric for ages, I know that also not all of you can. So, it was on to the next part, where they had all the different machines that they used to make these outfits and the textiles, and differing machines based off of the material that was used for making them, such as silk, hemp, or wool. as well as demonstrations on how the techniques changed over generations. They also had walls covered in examples of embroidery that the minority groups make today. And again, one really cool thing that they had here was a video that demonstrated how they would even make some of these textiles, such as the one I'm showing here, which highlights the Dong minority utilizing blue dye for creating the patterns in the tapestry that they were making. But my favorite section of the museum was right after this, the jewelry.
It really doesn't get more impressive than what you see here behind me.
A majority of these pieces are silver, but many of them are also gold. So rather than talk any more about them, I'm gonna let you just see what they look like. What did you think of that? Following that was a section dedicated to the songs and dances of the minority groups, and the different objects that would be used during the ceremonies and celebrations, such as masks. And boy, were there once again a lot of masks in this museum. Just look at this huge wall dedicated to opera masks. But probably my favorite part of this was seeing this screen that took up an entire wall, demonstrating celebrations around the province. The ones which we happened to see at the time were yet again about the Miao minority group. Maybe someone in the comments who knows more can tell me what was happening in this video, or what the celebration was for. But there were a whole bunch of ceremonies, and I really wish that I could have been there at the right time to see when these were happening. Hopefully, one day I'll be able to go and see these, and have my own recordings of them, rather than having to look and see what others have done. But it wasn't just these videos that they had on the walls. There was also this gigantic boat that didn't have a description of what it was for, but it looked like it was used for some kind of contest or celebration based off of the video in the background. And they also had some pictures of various celebrations as well. And boy, what I would give to be able to shoot these myself. Following that was a smaller historical section that began with the paleontology of the area that highlighted various fossils that were found in Guizhou province. And to be honest, I actually liked these more than what we saw in the dinosaur museum in Zigong. But it wasn't very long after that until we found ourselves in the parts highlighting human history, such as this horse-drawn chariot that you see here, dating from the Han Dynasty, about 2,000 years ago. As well as all of this ancient weaponry, pottery, and various other relics from the time. I personally like these little statues that are reminiscent of the terracotta warriors in Xi'an. But after that, we move on quite a number of years to the Ming Dynasty, where there's a whole lot of art from that era that's on display. Whether it's calligraphy or paintings, they have it all. And one thing I wasn't expecting to see here actually was inkstones that are used for calligraphy. I'd never really seen ancient examples of these before, so that was a fun thing to see here too. But it wasn't very long until we moved on from that to seeing the most incredible artifacts that are housed in this museum. Golden crafts from 500 to 600 years ago.
The crowns that you see behind me are made of solid gold.
seeing not one, but 2 golden crowns from the 1500s with gemstone inlays was something I never expected to see here. Looking at them actually took my breath away. The only information that's told about these crowns in the descriptions is that they were from a place called Gaoping in Huichuan district, and that they date from somewhere between 1500 to 1566. I'd really appreciate it if someone could tell me more about them, because something that is as unique and extravagant as these really needs a much greater description. And the same can be said of this embroidered robe of a Yi chieftain. There's far too little said in the descriptions about them, and these works really deserve to have much more of a history that's written down and provided for people at the museum, because, if anything, I would consider these among their main attractions. So then the final section of the museum up top was the Qing Dynasty section, which focused on the pottery of the time period. And what I'm doing here is highlighting some of the nicest pieces. And then it was time for us to head on down this maze. So we walked our way down and went into the basement area.
So we come down to the basement of the museum, expecting to just see a food court, maybe some stores, and to our surprise, what we come across is an exhibit on Napoleon. Let's go ahead and see what's here.
Now, one of the last things that I personally would expect to find in China is an exhibit that's dedicated to Napoleon Bonaparte and the Napoleonic era, because that's not something you typically associate with being in a museum in one of the poorer provinces of China. I understand that museum exhibits typically go on tour, depending on what the material is, and that certain things will go between various countries for a short amount of time. But this really was one of the last things I expected to see in Guiyang. However, it was a pleasant surprise, because there were quite a number of great works here, and relics from that time period. However, I'm only going to have a few of them on display here for you to see, so I hope you enjoyed looking at them for a little bit. Once we finished our way through the exhibit, we saw that people could again take pictures of looking like Napoleon, and came across a gift shop where they had some anime-style Napoleon merchandise. And after a quick glance around, we decided it was time for us to head on out, and unfortunately, on our way out, I started to feel like my throat was hurting. And recognizing that my throat was probably going to get worse if I didn't do anything about it, it was time for us to head off yet again to our next hospital in China, which happened to be this place, Guiyang Hospital, where we had our quickest hospital visit to date. Hospital trip number 4, although 3 for me, for my throat yet again. This is fun. Somehow, we managed to get through everything, seeing the doctor, getting a diagnosis, and then going downstairs to purchase medication for it, all within the span of 15 to 20 minutes. I'm going to have to make a video, I think, at some point, going over just what it's like to go to a hospital in China, since I've been there many times at this point, and it'll probably be useful for anyone who needs to know.
Just left hospital number 4 of the trip. Getting quite used to this.
And with that, we took a taxi back over toward our hotel and grabbed a bite to eat at the big mall area nearby, and that was pretty much it for our time seeing things in Guiyang. So I hope you enjoyed this video of the Guizhou Museum in Guiyang, and next time we'll be coming to you from Kaili, where we get to experience a lot more of the Miao culture. So, hope to see you next time. Thank you again for watching this video. Please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you have not already done so. Also, please share this channel with others so we can make the channel grow together.